This episode is going to be a continuation from the last one about positive psychology, and this one is going to be about a topic that makes me really, really angry as someone who has a family history of being in the military. So if I start screaming, you know why. Well, let's start. Positive psychology's major benefactor is mega churches, and it's mega churches who benefit from it the most. Without their money, positive psychology would have never really gotten off the ground back in 1999 because the US government wasn't really going to fund a new science that had no evidence backing it and still has little to no evidence backing it to this very day. And yet it's been 21 years. So let's get into the triggering bits. Trigger warning. Positive psychology has led to many tortures in Guantanamo Bay because of their comprehensive soldier fitness program that they developed for the US military. And this fitness program was to teach soldiers resilience and how to not have PTSD from going to war and watching their comrades and innocent people die before their very eyes, and how to just keep going on with war, which is sickening to the very core to think about. And this topic brings me so much anger, but I will continue on. This comprehensive fitness program doesn't really work. There are hardly no studies that show that it works. In fact, there are studies that show that it doesn't work. Until this very day, 20 or more soldiers die every day because they are not getting help for their PTSD. They are not getting help for their other issues. They are being sent back into war when their PTSD and other problems have not been treated. The US military doesn't care that these people can't keep going, and oftentimes they go home and they do something either violent to themselves or violent to someone else. Or if that doesn't happen, then they're oftentimes left homeless and nowhere to live, nowhere to go, because no one will provide them with a job because they don't really have skills or any resources to help them get into the job market or even housing market after they get out of the military. And yes, this is tied to positive psychology because positive psychology just glosses over this and says, oh, everything is fine, positivity will work, and you just need to be resilient and things will get better, even though that's just not how it works. And life is not easy for these soldiers. It is not pleasant most of the time. It is very painful. These poor soldiers don't often have options. They are left with staggering emotional and mental problems that they don't know how to deal with, and they aren't getting treated for because the military isn't providing them with an actual psychologist they can go to and talk to, but rather just telling them, hey, go do this program for like a month or 2 or 6 months or however long, and telling them, oh yeah, that will work, even though it won't. And if they do try to find a psychologist, oftentimes psychologists won't want to work with them because they've been in the military or because a psychologist is just way too expensive on their on a civilian salary. or whatever the military is providing for them isn't enough to actually pay for a psychologist to help them. And why positive psychology just perpetuates this problem in the military and in 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 society as well. Um, the this field just tells these poor soldiers and everyone else that, oh, you just need to think positive. Well, that's positive thinking, and I'll get into the differences in a second. But that all they need to do is learn how to be more resilient, and that will fix the PTSD, that will fix the anxiety, that will fix the nightmares and night terrors and the screaming, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, screaming of having war flashbacks. And if and when these you know programs inevitably don't work, these soldiers are left in the dust. And that's the thing that really, really makes me angry. But on top of that, Martin Seligman and his colleagues just say, "Oh, it's not our problem." No, it's the military's problem. Even though they're getting paid by the military to help soldiers, they're benefiting from these soldiers' misery. They are benefiting from these soldiers being sent back into war when they are still having these problems. They are benefiting from these soldiers getting tortured in war, or even while on active duty, not overseas, these soldiers being put through torturous training acts for their own for scientific research. And these soldiers are not even told that they're in a scientific experiment. They're just told that they have to go through this training. They're not told that it's a scientific experiment. The psychologists who are performing this aren't telling them, hey, you're in a scientific study. Here's a contract here's a paper you have to sign, knowing that you're in a study. Like a regular study would have these sort of, you're in a study, and you agree to the risks that come with it. But these soldiers oftentimes do not know that. They think it's just a regular training program. They don't think they're in a scientific experiment. But these soldiers are being experimented on for positive psychology's own damn pleasure. And that's the thing that just drives me crazy, because this program, as I said, doesn't work. There's hardly no evidence to support it. And these soldiers are being used as guinea pigs. But not only are they being used as guinea pigs, they don't even know that they're being tested on, which is actually against the law. It's against the law, but positive psychology has gotten around that by saying it's a training program and not a scientific study. It's been against the law since 1971, and in the referendum in 1991, that says that people cannot be experimented on or put through a scientific study without their permission. But positive psychologists have gotten around this by not saying it's a scientific study, by saying it's a training program. They don't have to follow these laws, meaning they can essentially do whatever they want, which is so unethical. And that's just what drives me crazy. I just don't understand why they don't tell these people at least that they're in a scientific study. And when I found out about this, it just infuriated me to no hell's end, because this topic is just sickening, that these poor soldiers don't actually get proper mental health treatment, but rather just some scientific garbage, non bullshit scientific garbage that doesn't actually work and isn't actually helping their problems. And this field just drives me crazy. It infuriates me. as someone who's dedicated to science, but who isn't a scientist, I find reading about some of this stuff to be really bad because, like I said, these people don't deserve this treatment. They don't deserve to be put through what would essentially be a scientific experiment, but they don't even know it's a scientific experiment because they're not told it is. They're basically being experimented on, and everyone in the military has to be put through this training. It's not optional. You can't opt out of it if you're in the military. And that's the thing that just angers me to no end. I think positive psychologists should be held accountable. I think they should be following the law and actually telling people what they're getting themselves into. I think the US military should be held accountable, and the government should really, really be telling people what is actually going on. I am making these podcast episodes to bring attention to these different topics, and that's what I intend to do. But that's just where I'm going to end it here. Remember, think critically and don't let the media think for you. Please don't let the media think for you.